am very, very concerned about the mental stability of this president at this point. Some of his behavior seems irrational to me. It seems beyond that of just a typical narcissistic, arrogant, sort of, I'm a leader of a big country and I feel tyrannical at the moment kind of attitude. It really seems to me like this president is demonstrating behavior that is not only anti-American, but irrational and erratic and perhaps not exactly what we might want to deem sane.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
American police in some cities are being armed to the teeth with military hardware more suited to war zones. But it's not because of some suburban security nightmare. It is because there's tons of expensive gear left over from lengthy foreign campaigns. And as Marina Portnaya explains, some of it has not even been used, and the President and the Pentagon don't want it gathering dust.
As America continues winding down its longest streak of war, soldiers are returning home, and so is their military arsenal.
A used armored vehicle that will be used during SWAT calls and other emergency situations.
9-foot-tall mine-resistant trucks specifically designed to survive roadside bomb attacks are parked all throughout the U.S. Local and state police departments have acquired more than 400 MRAPs and silencers and tens of thousands of M16 machine guns and night vision equipment.
It's a new paradigm. It's the military paradigm, militarized police, and the problem with that is when they look at American citizens, often they see enemy combatants.
This is all made possible through America's military transfer program, created in the 90s when violence and drug gangs plagued major cities. Today, crime in the U.S. has fallen to its lowest in a generation. And the Special Response Team in Richland County, South Carolina, looks like this, ready to take on the Taliban should it invade the South.
This gear, the thing that it's doing is basically just making it more and more obvious that our police are being militarized and that our police forces are being turned into soldiers.
Iraq war veteran Emily Yates says her country's law enforcement is being trained to fight against the public instead of serving to protect it.
They should be trained to de-escalate any violence or aggression that's happening, but instead the police are showing up and causing violence and aggression. People are just afraid all the time, and for no reason. Our country has never been invaded. We have no foreign armies at our doorstep.
However, a sheriff in Indiana claims his county needs MRAPs to protect against possible attacks by veterans returning from home.
I see a lot of paranoia about veterans, and I don't like that. And if it's used as an excuse to arm police like they're like the people in Afghanistan, then we got a problem. They're using that as a way to militarize the police for whatever they think might be coming in the future.
A future where America's local police forces will be prepared for war, but who will they be warring against? Marina Portnaya, RT.
And there are more than a few people worried that the local police are getting so tooled up. A retired captain, Ray Lewis, sided with protesters after officers pepper-sprayed peaceful demonstrators at an Occupy Wall Street rally back in 2011. And he told us once police have more firepower and military gear, their crackdowns could become more brutal than ever.
High-caliber weapons are extremely dangerous. They have a very high ricocheting velocity, and that means that innocent people are going to get killed and injured. They will be shot. They can go through doors. They can go through cinder block. They can go through metal car doors. And this type of velocity is not necessary. Think of Kent State, where they shot so many and killed so many innocent people. And they were not high-caliber weapons. Can you imagine the massacre that would take place if officers had high-caliber weapons? They will sell this high equipment. The repair, the maintenance for this will come from taxpayers' money. Corporate America will make billions off of this equipment. You heard of the prison industrial complex. You heard of the military industrial complex. Corporate America now wants to make a police industrial complex where they'll make billions off of police departments.
We've all heard of preemptive strikes, but what about preemptive prosecutions? Muslims in the U.S. are outraged by what appears to be America's latest tactic in its war on terror. entrapping people it suspects might plan terrorist acts in the future. Marina Portnaya explains how almost 95% of convictions for this crime are the result of FBI provocations.
In a post-9/11 America, hundreds of Muslims have been arrested, prosecuted, and imprisoned for attempting to carry out terrorist attacks. However, this study just released finds that the U.S. government has played a major role in orchestrating most of those so-called terror plots in order to exaggerate the domestic threat of Muslim extremism. When examining the Department of Justice's list of 399 terrorism cases, the study found that 94% of those cases involved preemptive prosecution. That's a practice of targeting those who officials deem predisposed to committing crimes before an actual crime is committed. In some instances, the study finds that defendants were targeted purely for their religious affiliations and ideological beliefs. In other instances, the FBI used an agent provocateur to recruit vulnerable individuals, luring them with cash and coercing them into carrying out a terrorist attack that was set up by the FBI. Now, a federal informant would provide the fake explosives and instruct the defendant on what to do. This is otherwise known as entrapment. Now, the 175-page report was released by Project Salam, a group providing support and legal advocacy for Muslims. One of the co-authors told me his findings make it difficult to believe in the integrity of the U.S. justice system and federal agencies.
What they were trying to do was to convince the American public that there is this large army of potential terrorists that they should all be very, very scared about. They are very much engaged in worldwide surveillance, and this surveillance is very valuable to them. They can learn an awful lot about all sorts of things and, in a sense, control issues and to their advantage. And the entire legal justification for that depends on there being a war on terror. Without a war on terror, they have no right to do this. So they have to keep this war on terror going. They have to keep finding people and arresting them and locking them up and scaring everybody. Because without that, they cannot justify the kind of surveillance they're doing.
U.S. surveillance, as the public has learned, is not just limited to Muslim citizens. Critics say unless there is public outcry over government-manufactured crime, that too may eventually become common practice to target anyone. Marina Portnaya, RT, New York.
People who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Of the reserve banks. We do not have jurisdiction to directly go out and audit reserve bank activities specifically. Nevertheless, in our lending facilities project, for example, we are looking at the board's oversight over the program and to the extent that extends out to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York.
Well, I have a copy of the Inspector General Act here in front of me, and it says, among other things, that it's your responsibility to conduct and supervise audits and investigations relating to the programs and operations of your agency.
That's correct.
So I'm asking you if your agency has, in fact, according to Bloomberg, extended $9 trillion in credit, which, by the way, works out to $30,000 for every single man, woman, and child in this country. I'd like to know, if you're not responsible for investigating that, who is?
We have responsibility for the Federal Reserve's programs and operations, audits, to conduct audits and investigations in that area. In terms of who's responsible for investigating, would you mind repeating the question one more time?
What have you done to investigate the off-balance sheet transactions conducted by the Federal Reserve, which, according to Bloomberg, now total $9 trillion in the last 8 months?
I'll have to look specifically at that Bloomberg article. I'm not, I don't know if I have actually seen that particular one.
That's not the point. The question is, have you done any investigation or auditing of off-balance sheet transactions conducted by the Federal Reserve?
At this point, we're conducting our lending facility project at a fairly high level and have not gotten to a specific level of detail to really be in a position to respond to your question.
Have you conducted any investigation or auditing of the losses that the Federal Reserve has experienced on its lending since last September?
We're still in the process of conducting that review. Until we actually, go out and gather the information, I'm not in a position to really respond to the specific question.
So are you telling me that nobody at the Federal Reserve is keeping track on a regular basis of the losses that it incurs on what is now a $2 trillion portfolio?
I don't know if you're telling me that you're mentioning that there's losses. I'm just saying that we're not, until we actually look at the program and have the information, we are not in a position to say whether there are losses or to respond in any other way to that particular.
Mr. Chairman, my time is up, but I have to tell you honestly, I am shocked to find out that nobody at the Federal Reserve, including the Inspector General, is keeping track of this.
Leon Mansion is in the house, motherfucker. Lucifer, son of the morning, I'm gonna chase you out of earth. I'm from the murder capital, where we murder for capital. Lucifer, son of the morning, I'm gonna chase you out of earth. Lucifer, son of the morning. So niggas change your attitude for they asking what happened to you. Chase you out of earth. You see. Lucifer, son of the morning, I'm gonna chase you out of earth. Lucifer, son of the morning, I'm gonna chase you out of earth. Lucifer, son of the morning, I'm from the murder capital, where we murder for capital. Lucifer, son of the morning, I'm gonna. Lucifer, son of the morning, I'm gonna. you out of earth.